Okay, so we left off last time on step 15, designing our ornament with the neck part of the ornament, and now we're moving on to step 16, which will add some noise to the ball to give it kind of a little bit more of a realistic look. So I'm going to tab over to Photoshop there and show you where we left off. I'm going to the new next step calls for us to create a new layer, and it's going to go above the neck highlight there. So I'm going to create that new layer right above it, and we're going to fill this layer with black. So down here in my foreground background color, I'm just going to toggle that so the black is in the foreground, and if you hit Alt Delete, that'll fill that layer there, or you can just take your paint bucket tool, click down there underneath the gradient tool, select paint bucket, and fill that layer. Okay. Following that, we need to add the noise filter. So we're going to go up to Filter, Noise, Add Noise. And the settings for this should be uniform, monochromatic, and the amount should be right around 30%. I think the directions say 29.55%. And we're just going to click OK. And from here, we need to clip this so that it just applies to the ornament. So to do that, I'm going to right click on that layer 2 there, and I'm just going to go ahead and rename this real quick and call this noise. And I'm going to right click on this and then select create clipping mask. So now that should just do it around the ornament. Okay. And then I'm going to toggle over and see what our next steps are. Scroll down, so there's that piece there. And then we need to change the blending mode of that layer to soft light, and then we need to reduce it to the opacity, reduce it to 54%. And then following that, we're going to add a new group around those layers as well. So I'm going to tab over, and also it does give us this little option here. It says if the effect is too intense, you can apply a level adjustment to this noise layer, and I'll show you kind of how that looks in the next when we toggle over. So I'm going to toggle over here, and so I'm going to be on that noise layer again, and where it says normal up in here in our blending mode, I'm going to select soft light. So you should see that go down there, and still you should see that shine come through. And so this is where in the instructions it says we can adjust this. If you think this is too much, well, and forgot to add that we need to reduce this down to 54% in terms of our opacity. So there we go. So you can kind of see how that texture, it creates a kind of like a glint, and kind of creates that realistic texture to this ball. If you think it's a little too dark, go up to Image, Adjustments, Levels, and this will give you a level output here. And if you toggle this over, you can adjust some of the lighting there. Here again, this output levels here, you can adjust some of the lighting so it's not so dark. So you see it gradually starting to disappear somewhat there. I'm going to go ahead and drop it down just a little bit, and we'll just leave it right there. You're welcome to just keep it as it was. I'm just going to go ahead and play around with it. Next, it also says that we need to group these layers together. And before I do that, though, you notice that I had named this group down here below with the ball and the ball topper as ornament. I'm going to go ahead and change that to just instead of ornament, I'm going to change that to ball. Okay, and then next when I group these all together, so I'm going to highlight from noise and all those clipping layers that we've created all the way down to ball, and I'm going to hit Control G or Command G, and I'm going to rename that as ornament, so that way it makes more sense. And then up here in that backup group that we made, I'm going to go ahead and do the same and call this ball backup. Okay, so I'm going to just toggle that arrow down so I can see everything once again where I'm at. And I'm going to toggle back over to our instructions and make sure that I got everything in step 17. I believe so. I'm going to scroll down so you can see in the instructions here the tutorial that this might be a little bit darker than what I'm going with, so it's not wrong that if you didn't make that adjustment. Okay, next, now we need to add some of that ornamentation, the design, to the ornament, and they've provided us with the brush for this. So I'm just gonna scroll up all the way to the top here, and at the very beginning of the tutorial under resources you'll see ornament brush. I'm gonna right click on this and open link in new tab, and it's going to take us to the this Lilia's Indian Ornament DeviantArt page, and right over here on the right hand side you want to click download. Right underneath where it says don't click on the start download, this big one that'll give you a program, like a zip program. What you want is the smaller one underneath it that says download. So go ahead and hit that, and it should save it to your download as a brush. I'm in Safari. You might, if you're using a different browser, it might push it somewhere else. And I'm going to quickly minimize this, minimize all my windows, and show you that I have I've already saved this in a folder. I've created a folder, an ornament folder with these, with my balls or with my ornaments, and simultaneously I'm working on the same tutorial as you. So I'm working ahead and then testing it out and seeing how things are going. So that way I can anticipate those hangups. So that's why I already have this brush file in this ornament folder. It's a good idea to save any type of assets or things that you use, like brushes, in folders like this, so you know to use them at a future date. So I'm going to pop back over here with our Photoshop and bring over here, and then scroll back down to step 17 there, and then step 18. Okay, so what we need to do is load those brushes into our brush manager. So I'm going to tab over to Photoshop and show you how to do that. First we're going to click on our brush tool, and up here we have this little icon that looks like a folder with a little paintbrush thing sticking out of it. Click on that, and it's going to bring you to the preset manager. And down here in the very bottom of this preset manager you have a little button that says open preset manager. So we're going to open that, and that's going to allow us to load these set of brushes. So I'm going to click load, and you're going to browse for the file that we want to load, which is that Lilia Indian Ornaments 2.abr. I've already done this, so I'm going to click cancel. You need to click open so that those push out into your manager. When you scroll down with all your different brush shapes, you're going to see all those different ornamented snowflake shapes. They're pretty cool looking. Okay, then you're going to click done. Oops, and then we're just going to push that back into our panel there, minimize it, and up here with our brush tool still selected, up here in the corner you can see the sizing up there. You should see those brushes loaded down there on the bottom. And the tutorial, it's number 440 right down here, the brush that the tutorial uses. And when you click over here to the brush, and I need to create a new layer first. So right above noise, where I have noise, make sure you create a new layer above that, because if you try to do it in the noise layer, it's not going to turn out right. So we need to be on layer 2, and I'm going to go ahead and call this just kind of call this O decorate. Okay, so you can see that how large that shape is. It's way too large. And the other thing that I need to change too is if I go ahead and click this right now, it's going to turn out black. So I'm going to Control Z. We need to switch that to white. So down in my color palette down there, I'm just going to click the toggle arrow there so it switches the foreground to white, and I'm going to reduce the size of this ornament to, let's try about 200 pixels. Let's see where that gets us. Not quite. Let's go up to about 250, getting closer. Oops. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now, in the next step, we're going to spherize this design so it looks like it's an actual ball instead of a two-dimensional object. If you put this too low on the ball, it's going to push this down a little bit further. So do it a little bit higher than you would anticipate. And all you need to do is click, oh, and then before we move forward, just in case you haven't changed your brush opacity yet, make sure it's set to 100% up here at the top. Bring that all the way to 100%. Okay, so that way when you just do a single click, it looks nice and bright right in that layer. And you can go ahead and add a couple extra if you'd like to enhance this design. In the tutorial, it is 452 is those smaller looking decoration pieces, and so I'm going to drop that down to about 50 or so pixels and put a couple of those in our design. Okay, and all it takes is a single click for those. Am I right? Now I'm going to toggle back over to our instructions and make sure that I finished out step 18 there. And it looks like I have. Looks like I added an extra one that was not in there, but that's okay. I'm going to scroll down here to step 19, and here's where we're going to spherize our design. And it's important that you follow through these steps pretty closely. Okay. So I'm going to toggle back over to Photoshop, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that the ball layer that we created originally, the circular ball, is open. So if you don't see that in that group down there like I do, click on the little arrow, toggle that arrow down so you see just that circle. Now here's where people will get hung up, so make sure you follow closely. What we want to do is just select the ball itself, only the ball. So to do that, in my layers panel, I need to hit Control or Command and then click the thumbnail while holding that key down. So Control, Command, click. So when you do that and you click just on the thumbnail, what it's going to do is it's just going to select the circle that we created in the very first step or the second step in the tutorial. Now, before we move forward, here's what you need to know. We don't want to have this layer selected, okay? We want to be selected on the decorate layer, okay? So we've clicked on the thumbnail and the ball layer so that we get our marching ants, so it only applies to that ball area, but we have the ornament decorate layers selected in our layers panel. So now we can go up to Filter, Distort, Spherize. Okay, and you should see, you can't really see it very well in here. We're leaving it at mode as normal and amount at 100%. You can kind of see what's happening here is that because we've selected only the circle, right? What it's doing is it's creating that 3D shape, and it's going to create the 3D shape with only the brush, the ornament that we've created before. So I'm going to click OK. And so boom, there you go. There's our spherized ornament. So it looks like it's, rounded. It's a rounded shape on our piece. Okay. Last but not least with this layer, we need to make this as turn the blending mode to overlay. So where it says normal up here in the top, making sure that I'm still selected on that ornament decorate, click the drop down and then select overlay. What that's going to do is it's going to create that layer that looks like it blends in with the layers over the top of it. So it's blending in with all of those layers, from the noise to the ball topper and the original ball. It's just blending all those layers together and creating that nice blended look. Okay, so I'm going to hit my toggle here, make sure I've done everything correctly. So now we have the ornament look like it's in 3D, not a flat 2D, flat 2D. So we've done step 19. Step 20 there, we did the filter, spherize. Scrolling on down to step 21, that's where the overlay is. Pretty similar there. Maybe not quite. I could make some adjustments, but I think it's good. I'm good with that. Toggle over, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the tutorial here so that we can focus on, in the next tutorial, we can focus on the steps to creating the metallic part of the ornament.